We are officially now at the halfway point in this federal election campaign, and with the gap between the frontrunners getting smaller, the storylines emerging, and the issues taking center stage, we're joined this morning by CTV Chief Political Correspondent Vassy Kapela. She's in Ottawa this morning. Good morning to you, Vassy.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. Listen, let's start with the poll numbers. Those brand new numbers just out show this narrowing gap between the Liberals and the Conservatives. 4 points now. What do you attribute this to?
Well, like you, I've spoken to Nick Nanos, where this polling comes from in Nanos Research, and he said essentially every time there's an event that involves U.S. President Donald Trump, and then Mark Carney is responding in his capacity as prime minister, not in his capacity as Liberal leader, the Liberals see a kind of surge of sorts, and then it settles back down as that recedes from being kind of the dominant storyline or the only, I guess I should say, storyline, and as Mark Carney is on more even footing with the leaders of the other parties. So I think it's reflective basically of the point of the week that we're in and the point of the campaign we're in. And this was always a very competitive race. It's just that the momentum, according to public opinion polls in the aggregate, happened to be with the Liberals because they came rather from so far behind 2 months ago right up to where the Conservatives were and then started surpassing them. I think that both parties are enjoying very high levels of support. So it's really going to come down to the efficiency of that vote, of the popular support.
Yeah, and that metaphor of this is a marathon and not a sprint really comes into play when you see them, sort of jockeying for who's going to take the lead. I want to put those numbers back up again, and a reminder to everybody, these are new this morning. Let's take a look at that NDP number. So what does a weaker NDP now mean for both the Conservatives and the Liberals?
It makes things a lot harder for the Conservatives and a lot easier for the Liberals, because if you dig deep into the numbers as you are, you will see that as the NDP vote has receded, it has gone almost exclusively to the Liberals. And that has been, by and large, the reason that the Liberals are able to, they recaptured so much of what they had lost, but then they are building on their traditional base. So people who have were not going to vote for Justin Trudeau, considering sort of other options, they've brought those people back, but they've added to it the progressive base, basically, of the NDP. The Conservatives do better when the vote on the left or the progressive side of the country is split in half or split in some dynamic, right? Because they are able to capitalize on that, and they have in previous elections. In this case, the Liberals have swept up the NDP vote, and it has really buoyed them throughout the past number of weeks. If it keeps going this way, I don't know how much more ground the NDP could lose. And again, I'll contextualize it. This is polling. This is a moment in time. It doesn't mean for sure it's what's going to happen. We have to consider the efficiency of the vote. But as Nick Nanos points out, this is historic lows right now for the NDP. So if it keeps going this way, it's going to be a whole other conversation about the party in and of itself, its viability, and the viability of the leader, too, Jagmeet Singh.
Yeah, listen, we mentioned that we are at the halfway point. Nick Nanos numbers showing this regional breakdown as well. So, Vassy, as you're watching, where in this last half of the race do these leaders need to focus their campaigns in order to build support for a win?
Well, it depends on the party. I think the one place where they all converge is Ontario, which will be, not welcome news to people who were keenly interested in your last segment, and rightly so. But that's only because in Alberta, for example, and Saskatchewan, the base of the Conservatives is very solid. Ontario, for all three parties, is competitive. There are some ridings, for example, in Southwest Ontario that are three-way races. The Greater Toronto area is of particular significance to both the Liberals and the Conservatives if they want to form government. And then I would add, particularly for the Liberals, Quebec becomes very important as well, because they have been able to see such a difference in their public opinion polling there at the expense in that province of mostly the Bloc Québécois. That could prove to be very important if they are kind of on the path to forming government. And I would also throw BC into the mix. There are some three-way races there, very, very key for incumbency when it comes to the NDP, but also important for the Conservatives, where they saw massive gains last year, some of which have been reversed, but not all. And so they will be looking to be very competitive in BC as well if they are to form government.
I think back to before this campaign started, and, the issues in this country, everybody was talking about housing and healthcare. We don't hear as much about that in this race. So what other issues and storylines have started to emerge as we get ready to now cross the halfway point?
Yeah, it's a great point. I feel like the conversation we would have had a year ago in this election has definitely migrated. And the primary reason for that is Donald Trump and the specificity with which he has taken aim at both our economy and our sovereignty. I would say, though, that the parties are still talking about the other stuff because I think the degree to which you care about it depends a lot on A, kind of your socioeconomic status, but B, your age, right? There are, I think, many people between 18 and 45 who still feel, despite the threat of Donald Trump, that no matter what they do, no matter how hard they work, they can't get ahead. And you will see some discrepancies in the way they plan to vote and the way that older Canadians vote. Mostly over 55, they're in it for the Liberals. It's competitive from 18 to 45, but they're mostly, going to vote for the Conservatives. And so I think that there are still a lot of issues around affordability and again, that feeling that you can't get ahead that still permeate different demographics. I think the Trump issue, as you get older and your lot in life is more secure, becomes more and more important. And ultimately, when it's about our sovereignty, that has overshadowed pretty much everything.
Well, as you and I know, when you talk to people across this country, cost of living comes up as their #1 concern. And as you point out, as you dig into the demographics, that's one of the storylines taking shape, is depending on which demographic, age pool you're in, security and cost of living look very different and mean very different things. Vashti, always great to speak to you. Thanks for making time for us this morning from Ottawa.
My pleasure, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.